Hey everyone, this is the second edition of a budget file video that will show you how to create more of an intermediate budget in Excel using indirect and a few other functions, mostly cell, but it's going to focus mostly on indirect. So I'll just fill up some data in here so I can explain what I'm trying to achieve, and then I'll show you the individual sheets and what's going on, and we'll get on with how it's done. So I have selected the sheets for my data. I'll explain in a moment how this is all done, so don't worry that you don't quite get the whole thing for now. Just stick in some random numbers, and you don't have to do this, I'm just filling it up for you. If I could type, that would be marvelous. Is more than say 0.92, then stick some numbers in there, otherwise don't do anything. Actually make it a bit bigger, so there we go, and we'll delete the contents for this. Again, I will explain in a moment what's going on, and then it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand what's happening. So now that we have some numbers in the budget, this is all random, it's just being created as you've seen it, and the underlying idea will be that we have one sheet for each month of the year, and in each sheet you have an individual date and you have your categories which you can define for your own self. And we have this thing that I call OC, which is online commission, and it's for things that eBay takes as a commission, or any other website or any other thing that takes a commission, and therefore it affects how much money you make or spend. I'll explain this in a bit later. And then for each year we have a total which just sums up whatever has been inputted in the previous 12 odd sheets. And we also have what I call a timeline, and again you've seen this was all randomized, so ignore the numbers are all horrendous, but it will sum up all the things again. And then we have a monthly breakdown which will essentially show you how much per month your budget has been coming and going, taking into consideration that, for example, in 2020 we are in January at the moment, so we only want to compare 1 month, 1 month's worth of data rather than 12 months worth of data, otherwise it would be totally unfair and silly. You'll see that pretty much everything is based on a combination of indirect, and I think in this version I have a few H lookups, but I'll try to substitute them with indirect so you don't need to bother with any of the H lookups. And also note that I'm using Excel 365, which is actually in the fast string, which is to say, unless you're also an insider, there might be a few interesting things in here that you might not see at the moment, specifically the @ sign with the indirect. Completely ignore that and just use indirect as you have in your version, whatever you're using. I'm not going to go into what the @ sign does because it's entirely irrelevant for us, and just use it as usual and you'll be totally fine. I set the display to 175% so you can see what I'm doing, because one of the things from the old version of the video was that probably no one could see what I was up to, which didn't really help. And we'll just get on with it, and it's not a fully educational thing, I'm not going to handhold, but what I do want to show you is a kind of a step-by-step thing. So I'll show how to do stuff, and then I'll point out a few like best practices or things to think about, and as I said, there's going to be a bit of floating text down on the bottom of the screen, so if you don't want to listen to me you can mute it and just watch what I'm doing. So let's make a new sheet, a workbook I mean, and let's call it, for the simplicity's sake, I'll start with 2019 and just say 2019-01. and the first thing you will want to do is define the date. So what we're doing here is, if we go back to 2019, and I know this is using 1, you can use 01. 01 is a bit more useful because, you know, a whole bunch of the months have a 2-character definition, so 10, 11, 12 or 2 characters. It will make life a bit easier. What we are trying to do here is get this cell to read the date out of the sheet name, and the reason why we're doing this is that when you have a new month, you will have a new sheet. You don't have to change your A2 cell into, you know, 2019-02, 2019-03 or whatever, and it's going to be a lot more automatic. And one of the things you'll want to do is save the file. I don't mind what you call it, just save the file, because we're using cell and file name as a basis, and that will require the file to have a name, otherwise it's not going to work. And just save it, I don't know, budget YouTube, and then suddenly if you go back and hit enter, it now gives you where the file is, which we don't care about, and what we do care about is the sheet name, and because that's going to be the basis for our dates. So you can reference A1, it doesn't matter, you can reference anything in here. So what you'll want is, here is the right 7 characters, because that gives you the month, and you'll also want to change that into not an underline but a dash. So you'll take the right 7 and you could say substitute with a dash, and just say and 01, and clearly I've mistyped it, yes, and there you go. You now have your first month date, and you should be generally fine with this. Now, one thing you can do is to say, I'll just add +1 and ignore the formatting. Obviously it's not formatted as a date. Now I like the ISO date format, and I do suggest you follow it through, because Excel might get a bit confused if you're using American or anything else. And again, I said I will point out good and bad ideas here. So you could keep going with the add +1, but the problem you might have is that some months go not as far as the 31st. So if I was to change this to 02, and lo and behold, the whole thing changes, which is what we're trying to achieve. But the problem you're having is now that this is the wrong month, and again we're trying to achieve some level of automation here. So what you want to do is to make sure that you're in the same month. So the logic would be then, and I'm just going to delete it, but you can just do an edit. So if year month that +1, and it's the same month, is the same as year month that 0, then you can add 1, and so otherwise don't do anything. So now if you go to all the way down, you're pretty much there, and just do an error checking. If it's an error, don't show anything. And now it's all fixed. So if we go back to 01, it works, and there's no month with 32nd or 33rd, so we just get rid of that. So that sorts out your date. The categories, I will just copy paste in from the other one, because it doesn't really affect what we are doing. You can call your categories anything you want, and I'll also get the formatting in, because you can do your own formatting the way you want. So what we have, you know, that's what we've done so far, and that's just normal text. So that is the framework for this. Now, okay, so with that done, let's put some numbers in, and I'm just going to copy paste back the values for the numbers, which I did not do properly. Okay, and the idea is that obviously you spend on certain things. Let's get rid of alcohol because that was meant to be a subcategory. You spend on certain things, you make some money, and you might even make money on, say, gadgets because you sell it. So the idea is that for any category where you have a normal budget flow, where you don't work with commissions, I'm just going to fix the top. You just do a sum. So for each of these, you just do a stock standard sum, and you never do any sums for the OCs, because what we're going to put here is going to be a percentage, not a financial value. So that is fine, and that's fine, that's fine. I'm hitting Ctrl Enter, by the way, so it fills up all these. Now the magic idea with this is, you know, let's say you bought something for £585, something cents, pennies, and then you also sold something, let's say, for 100, so that would come in as a negative. So theoretically, if we follow the same logic here, then, you know, you made you spent £721.65 over the course of the month. But assume you work with eBay, and eBay takes, I think, 13%. Now that doesn't really get represented in your gains and losses at the moment, which doesn't help you. So what we're trying to achieve here is to account for this, and the way inline commission is going to be done here is adding a tiny bit of complexity to the normal sum. The way we're doing it is a bit more fun. So we just take an almost normal sum, and then we'll deduct the commission part, which will be by deducting the sum product of these two guys. And that's what you're after, because if I take away anything that was an expense, you'll see that, you made £100, call it eBay took 13% of it, so really you only made £87, and that's really what we're after here. So that's your logic. You have your normal sum and then a negative sum product of those two columns. Also make sure that you don't end up doing this, because that's going to be totally wrong. So just make sure that you don't cover your two columns in one array, but keep it to two arrays, 1 and 2, and then you get what you're after. And then for any other category for any other category that uses the same logic, just paste it in, and that's the logic for your monthly breakdowns, which really means you almost have half of your budget done. And your total in, I haven't added that one in here, but the idea here is, in my case, you only have that as an income source, but you could say add in a bunch of other columns if you want to do breakdowns or something, and then your total out is really a sum of everything else. And I think there is no total, but going back to the skeleton, yes, there was a total, apologies. So we could just nick that, stick it here, and that will just be this and then that will just be your income minus your outgoings, which in this case is a fair bit of money. So that's your month breakdown, and I've showed you can duplicate this. Just basically you can use your mouse. And it works. Now obviously this is dummy data, so it's all going to be not quite right, but hey. So let's do the year sheet, which will be the identical one to this. And so this is where indirect is going to start coming in a lot more, and it's going to be a fair bit of fun. So I will take nothing at the moment, but I will be copying and pasting a few things just to make life a bit easier. So stick to the formatting B4, and again we'll just say call it 2019 total, and that's the only thing you'll have to be renaming each year, that the year itself. So let's say left cell file name. Actually, let's get the sheet name. So again, cell file name A1, and then you kind of know which part you want, and you'll just have to do a few calculations. Alternatively, you could say mid, find and +1 and 4, and now that should theoretically work. Yes, it does work. So what I've done here is that we know that the cell file name will have the whole, why don't I just show you? Come on. So we know that we want to find the closing bracket character, and then we know from then on it's 4. So that's what happened here. You can go by other ways. You could say the left of the right, I don't know, 10 characters, up to you. And then that's just a formatting thing. So I'll just take the formats just so that it looks pretty. And I'll take a few more formats, but I'm not taking any of the formulas. The only thing I will take is this. Because the easy way to go about this, really, if you don't want to type it up, just say January, and if you use another language, then do it that way. And you can always pull this down, so you don't have to type up all the 12 months. And then the categories will pretty much be the same as we had in the other one, and I'll leave booze in because I will want to show you how it works. The fact that you can add in categories really easily, and I know I deleted that initially. That's part of the plan. So we'll just take all this stuff, and what we are trying to get here is the logic will be that we know that our months are based on the year and the month, and then we also know that we have categories that are called such and such, like shopping and eating out and all the other things. So we'll use a set of indirects to convert, say, 2019 January into 2019-01 and 2019-02, and then take indirect and start looking things up. I'll do this in steps, and we'll just add up the whole thing at the end, and we will start with the category, not the totals. So the initial thing you want to achieve is convert this into 01, which is going to be done by, so the way you do that is, and I'm going to change this one back for a moment to general, otherwise it's going to show money, is to say date value and you fix your B but not the 6, and space 1. And we don't really care about the year it's using. If you stick that back to your date, you'll see it figured out you're talking about a year, and then you can build it from there. So it's month of that, and you want to format it double because our sheets are 01 and 02. So text, and your format is double, and then basically all you have is your year, which is fixed here, and an underline, and that. So that's going to be the basis for your indirect. You might want to just copy paste this whole thing because you'll need it. So that sorts your month. And before we start doing the whole indirect thing, there's one thing that I forgot to do, and that's indicate a total row. So if you only have one, then just one sheet, then that's easy. If you have more, then just select it, and where your numbers are, call it total. And the reason for that is that we're going to do a lookup on that in a moment. So what we'll try to achieve in the next step is find where these categories are, which we know is always in the first row, and then find where your totals are, which we know that the word total appears in the first column, and we'll be using R1C1 rather than A1 logic, because it's a lot easier to do this way than trying to convert A into numbers and B into numbers and all that stuff. So let's try getting on with indirect. And because we're doing it on another sheet, you'll need a single quote and then an and, another single quote, exclamation, R. And because initially we're looking up the word total, we have to find it. Now if you feel lazy, then you could just say R30, I think it was 34 or 35, I'm not checking it now, and that saves you one round of lookups. But I think it's actually fun to do it the proper way, just in case, you know, it's a learning opportunity anyway. So I'd say row, and then you want to match. And in our case, we know it's total. If you're using another language, then do it appropriately. And you look up array, and this is where it's going to get fun, which is the sarcastic fun. Your lookup array is pretty much another set of this. So you have another indirect, and that one, it's going to be AA, because it's in the first column, and for that one it is an A1 style, and your match type is 0. So that should give you, I don't know, 34 or whatever. So far we have R34. Okay, so now that you have your row for the total fixed and sorted, you reach to the same thing for the column. And I appreciate it's easy to get lost in this, and if you're keeping an eye on it, you'll see I've cut the video a few times here. But fear not, it's actually not horrendously difficult. What you want to do is add in a C, because now we're going to be looking at the column, and then we'll do another match. And what you're matching, what your lookup value is the category name, which is always up here, and you'll fix your 5, and your lookup array will be pretty much the same idea. So another indirect, and I'll just paste in what we used here, and you need the exclamation, and then it's 1 to 1, because we know that category names appear in the first row. And again, this one is going to be A1 style, and the match type is going to be 0. And that's actually it, because from here on you have a R1C1 type for the big indirect, and it will just give you that value, which is this value, and you pretty much sorted it now, because, and remember we only have 2 months here, so if I paste it down to December it's going to throw a lot of errors, and because I copy pasted the 2 sheets, they're identical, but just for sake of simplicity I'll add in £20, and then you see that I'm not cheating. And then what you want to do here is just add in an error check. So if error, then it's a 0, and if you paste it down, it just gives you a bunch of zeros, and you can copy paste this all the way, and then you can add formatting. So if I go back and take the formatting for this stuff, sod it, just say currency, and that's kind of it. Or you can use accounting. Accounting is a bit less anal on zeros. That sorts it. Now the reason why I wanted to use the booze example is that if for whatever reason you decide you want to add in something in the middle of the year, you can just stick it anywhere. Like, observe that here we have the order of shopping, booze, eating out, but what I want to show you is that, you know, if you stick it in here and you just call it booze, and I don't know, make it £30, just make sure you copy this, and there you go, you have it. Really simple to work with, and then all you have is your totals. So I'm just pasting formulae, and then that's just this, and there you have a very large part of what we've been trying to achieve already sorted. So the next fun part is going to, I mean, totals are easy, obviously just do a sum on whatever is here, and then the next fun thing is going to be the previous year, and for previous year you'll need an actual previous year to exist, so because it will be looking at the 2018 total or the 2020 total, 2019 total, however time goes on. So let's duplicate all of this and just make sure that they line up with reality, or our own reality anyway, and see how the year changed here. Just decided. So that's why this is very simple to work with. It takes a bit of time to set up, and indirect is a bit of a bitch, but so what you want to achieve here is you want to make sure this is picking up the total line from 2018. And if so now we have, whoops, someone spent a lot of money on healthcare. Oh no, other, what the hell? I really don't want to have 100,000 dot here, because there you go. Yeah, see, that's why you make sure that works. Okay, so now we have pseudo real values, and we can go on with that. So the way you can do that is very much similar, and probably the easiest way to do it is to say get the year -1 from here, because that's pretty much always dynamic, and then just, you know that the number you're looking for is either in row 18, or you can do a lookup on it. It's not likely to change given that the number of months don't really change, and then you just look up the column in here. Depends on how funky you want to get. You could do a lookup on where does this month start, and where does this start, and where does that start. I'll leave that in your capable hands. I'll show you the slightly lazier / efficient version, I think. So for numbers sake, what we want to get for shopping is £961. So if I say indirect, and you'll need the single quote and that -1, and total, because that's your sheet name, and you then have that, and we're using those in columns again. So row is going to be 18 and column is going to be match this, and again fix your 5, and that's going to be another indirect, and that -1, and total, and the row is 5, so just 5 5, and that one is A1 style, and your match type is 0, and we had the row 18 column, whatever that gives us, and false, and that should work. Famous last words. And it works indeed. Marvelous. And that's what you want. That's your last year, and you can copy paste the formula and it will calculate, and then you can just, I don't know how I did the difference in the other one. It's a percentage, so you get that over this -1, and obviously some of it, this being all dummy data, it's going to be a bit silly, but you get the gist. And this year, last year, is basically, the idea is that your total out is 100, and then whichever value you have in there is a division, so you're dividing. So some of them won't apply, but then just say you divide that over, well, in this case that again, and yeah, don't do that. And I am missing out on something because the numbers do not add up. What have I done wrong? So obviously that should come to 1, or as in 100%, which means I am totally missing out on something. Business, yes, we didn't do business because usually I don't tend to do the business stuff, but fear not, the beauty of this whole thing is that you can just add it in, and yeah, so now that comes to 100, and that one's throwing an NA because the last year doesn't have a business. And just formatting stuff, and that's kind of it. So now there are no issues, no errors, no problems, and you can do that for the last year as well, which is pretty much the same logic as this. You're just going to look up, you can actually take this and just make sure you're looking at row 23, unless you want to do a lookup on last year percentage. So obviously for last year, that's going to be the current this year, which is up here, not that, and there you have it. That's always going to be 100. You don't really need to bug much with that. And again, it's showing a 0 because I didn't bother sticking it in here, but if you do it properly, it works. Cool. So with that done, there's only one thing left, which is the timeline. And timeline is basically a numeric overview with the chart, and then much the same idea with the monthly breakdown. And essentially what you have is getting the sums of these values onto one sheet per year and then charting that up. So if we do do it the lazy way, timeline, and I'll take that, where was I, A4, and then the way you have it with the year is, because we make it all dynamic, it's going to be a bit funky looking. So logically you could just do this, and yeah, it totally works, but then the issue you have is you always have to do that one, and you know, we're lazy or we don't like it that way. So what you have is, instead we're saying minus column plus 2, which is a bit of a weird logic, but it does the job. And so minus column in this case is going to be 2, plus 2 is 2, so it's 0, 0. But then you can paste it out, which is why we're doing it. And I'll just grab a bit of formatting from here. Don't know how. F off. Format, and I'll make that look nice. And then here's the fun part. It's again going to be an absolute load of indirect, and we don't actually have 2020 here. I haven't bothered doing it, so I'll just do 2019. So again, the idea is you can do the lookup for the total, as in the word total. Again, because the number of months don't tend to change in a year, that's going to be affixed on 18, I think, anyway. So I'm going to fix it on 18, but if you want, then you can do a match on the word total and do it that way. So what you're trying to get is indirect, single quote, and you get the gist, usual stuff. You want it fixed on C. Yeah, you want it fixed on C, and then total, and it's your row 18 in our case, and your column's going to be the usual match, that one, and you're fixing it on A, and again another indirect, same bit of magic, and I am not doing this the right way, because it needs to be 4, and that needs to be 4 as well. Oi. There you go. And space total, we know that it's in row 5, I think. This is when, not sure what I'm doing. Yes, bleep off. Yeah, so we're matching it in row 5. So total, single quote, 5, 5, and quote, yep, match type 0, and it's R1C1, and that should give us 4,700 and a bit, which is what it's doing. Now what you'll have is that it's going to throw an error at some of these places, especially in, I'll just do 2020 and then you see what I'm on about. And actually it's going to throw an error for anything that's not part of these, because you know clearly we only have 2 years here. So what you want is just that, and it's a Control Enter, and that way you can actually, you should be able to do the same thing for this. And yeah, that was a silly idea. What I'm trying to get it to do is to look vaguely decent, and that's your timeline in terms of numbers. Then you basically just chart it up. I don't really want to get into the charting part because I think it's each to their own, but essentially, you know, insert line chart or whatever works for you, and then yeah, just make sure that your series are your years. So you know, that's the idea. And for the monthly breakdown, if you have a look at what I have here, I'm referencing the value that's here, and it's basically just to say make sure it's the same year and then divide it by how many months have passed, like 1/12, 2/12, that sort of stuff, so that you're looking at the identical number of months, which is something I vaguely explained. So in January you're only looking at the average of a 12th of the previous year. In February you're looking at 2/12 of the previous year, and so on and so on. So that covers the budget, and I think it's kind of cool. It doesn't take too long to do, quite fun, as much as budgets can be fun in Excel. And you'll notice that in my skeleton version I was using single character years instead of, single character months rather than double character months. You can do that too. You'll have to do things a bit slightly differently. I suggest sticking to what I was showing you before, that it's double character month. I think it's easier. In the big scheme of things it's pretty much the same, and I think yeah, that's actually it. So thanks for watching, and you know, the usual stuff. If you have any questions, comments, drop me a line, drop me a comment, and I'll try to answer. Also, if you have anything you'd like to learn or see or do, drop a comment and I'll add it in. So yeah, and do subscribe, because I still need 992 subscribers to make money on this. So that's a long way to world domination, and it can't be done without you. So thank you.